We are here with Patrick Quinn, who just gave an incredible keynote speech here at the DOOH Advertising Summit at DSC in Las Vegas. Wanted to talk with him briefly about a couple of questions. He mentioned some very key points about the ideas of convergence and the overall growth of the industry. Patrick, what do you think the growth is going to be here coming up over the next couple of years?
Well, in the digital place-based network business in particular, overall digital out-of-home, we're looking to see it grew about 15% in 2010. Which includes digital place-based networks and digital billboards and signage in the U.S. We expect it to accelerate again in 2011 to about 16% or a little bit more, driven by a number of factors. Certainly, cinema continues to the cinema category continues to grow consistently. The office category continues to grow even faster consistently, and I think some of the other network areas also continue to grow. There's certainly growth opportunities that abound, which I mentioned during the presentation, and there's also some key challenges that I tried to bring out to the audience as well. There was a lot of network operators there, and so I was trying to speak to some of them with a dose of brutal honesty as far as what through our research over the last year from brands, interviewing hundreds of brands, agencies, operators, financiers, what are they saying are the key obstacles to growth? I mean, there's good growth. I mean, 15, 16%, nothing to sneeze at in a relative, not so good economy in 2010. But what could we be doing better? And I think some of the things that came out is that the industry continues to need to consolidate. There's if we just look at the network business, the digital place-based networks in the U.S., there's about 220. It has been consolidating. There used to be over 300 just a couple of years ago. We're down to 220, and the footprint is slowly expanding. We used to have under 400, maybe 350 actual networks being operated just 2 years ago, and now there's about 468. So some of those things are happening, but some of the key obstacles that we see are as I mentioned, the lack of one voice for the industry, whether it's one or it's two voices, but there's multiple voices in the U.S. As far as the different associations and agencies and operators, and the brands and agencies who we spoke with at length and in depth over the past year here in the U.S. and abroad, but particularly to the U.S., said that they're just getting so many different signals from all over as to, and I showed the example of the one agency exec that said I had one network come in on Monday that showed me impressions per week. I had another one come in on Wednesday that showed me impressions per month, and I had another one that came in on, and he just said, I don't know, how do I make sense of this? How do I make sense of this? How do I integrate you into our multimedia campaign if I can't even decipher, who's got what, when, and how? And so that was kind of the message I was trying to impart on the operators, because I think from what I've observed over the past year or two, there hasn't been, a lot of what I would say brutal honesty as far as what we could be doing differently, contrarian voices, I guess, whatever you want to call it. Because there's some great, I think this is a great industry that has a lot of potential ahead of it, and certainly so do many others. But I think also those challenges, as far as the one voice and the fragmentation and the lack of a cohesive medium buying and planning tools. I think also the trust factor, the collaboration factor, coming together as one industry, because I think that the brands and agency execs that serve on our global opinion leader panel, they made it very, very clear that and it's seen this way outside of the U.S. that out-of-home media, digital out-of-home media, and out-of-home media are one big industry, and they're not separate segments. There's not traditional here and digital there and networks here and billboards there. It's one industry, and typically you'll have one or two organizations, but they work pretty closely together and they treat each other as as one, and the agencies and brands get it. Whereas in the U.S. it seems that there's much more fragmentation and less cohesion, and I think that the brands and agencies are very frustrated by that. That certainly came out.
Yeah, and what do you think will be the biggest advantage of this kind of continued consolidation as the market matures?
Well, I think one of the key advantages, there's several key advantages. I mean, there's a lot of advantages for digital place-based networks, as I mentioned. I mean, when it's done right, when there's strong program content, advertising, creative, digital place-based networks can reach captive target consumers in relevant and contextually relevant locations to seed the next purchase. And that's what brands want. And what they said over and over and over again to us is, it's not about how you're defined and what business you're in or what budget you want to pull from. For us, we need to focus on our brand clients' strategic growth objectives, and so we need you to come on board with us with that, whether it's coming from the out-of-home budget or the TV budget or the internet budget, whatever it may be. And of course, there's been a lot of talk about focusing on the TV budget, and so I showed that is that a good is that a strategy that maybe needs to be rethought if that's all we're going to focus on. But one of the key advantages of the consolidation, I think, is that in coming straight from the research and historical research in the media business, that when a business will go through, emerging media goes through the three stages, the gold rush and the shakeout, and then a breakout, and then a mature growth business. And I think that's true for many, most industries. The reason for that is for some of these reasons, some of these challenges in the fragmentation. When you come together, it's easier to plan, it's easier to buy. There's the one voice, there's the standard metrics, there's the working together, and I think it's just a historical fact that's what happens in a successful growth business, that there's going to be consolidation, or there may not be, or maybe this whole digital out-of-home phenomenon becomes something completely different in the next few years. It evolves with mobile and social media, and they come together as a whole new media that we don't even know what it's going to be called yet. The digital convergent media. I don't know. So anything can happen in media and technology. If there's anything I've learned over the years in covering media and communications and entertainment, it changes so rapidly with technology innovation, changing consumer behaviors, and then that drives whole new ad media, and things can change at lightning quick. And so, but for now, this is there's a lot of buzz and a lot of focus, not just in the U.S. but globally, as I showed with Focus Media in China, selling their internet assets to focus on digital out-of-home media. That's a pretty big deal. That says a lot. They're one of the major companies, and so they're putting a lot of faith in this business.
Yeah, that's a very big news point as well. Now, your growth forecasts have historically been very accurate as well, and so who should be looking to pick up your new version that just came out today? Is it just network operators, or does everybody have value from it?
Well, I think that certainly the network operators get value out of it, whether it's in the U.S. or it's globally, but I think the brands and the agencies can certainly value from it as well, because we took a lot of their input over the last year. We talked, like I said, we did hundreds of interviews on our PQ Media's Global Opinion Leader panel, and we got a lot more of their input into what's going on and what the obstacles are to growth in this business. So it's a growth story, and it's global and focusing on the U.S., but at the same time, there's that brutal honesty I was talking about within the story as to, can we be doing it a little bit better? Should we be rethinking some things? So I think that not only the operators, but the brands, the agencies, and I think the financial institutions that are looking for growth opportunities as well, here and abroad, I think that they would very much value the research, the new research that was released today in the global digital out-of-home forecast, and certainly consultants as well to help their clients.
Great. Well, Patrick, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Tony.